Together we learn, together we grow, together we heal, together we flow. Be cool, every teacher, every school. 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 Be cool, every teacher.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Todd Scholl. I serve as the lead learner for the SCEA Center for Educator Wellness and Learning. We call ourselves Cool, and you can find out everything about us at this website right here. Cool. I always do this wrong. Okay, cool.us, cewl.us. You'll find all kinds of great resources on that website. You can also request free professional learning for your school or district. If you're a public school district or school in South Carolina, we offer free professional learning sessions. We also have mindfulness retreats and yoga resources and trauma-informed education resources. And we have a whole Cool Induction Institute led by Dr. Marcella Weinsnyder and our Cool coaches. We do free one-to-one Cool coaching, and that'll start next week. And it's every Tuesday and Thursday nights at from 6 to 8 o'clock. So just there's a whole bunch of resources, videos and podcasts and blog posts and links for you to come to our events. Lots of really cool stuff, pun intended, on the Cool website. So check that out when you have a moment. But tonight we're going to be talking about book bans. So a lot of you may have heard about this new regulation 43170, which essentially will allow people to override maybe what a district has decided on a particular book challenge, so they can go to the State Board of Ed and see if they can get it, challenge it there. It also has a lot of vague language about, for example, the books have to be developmentally or age appropriate, and also can't depict any sexual content, which all of a sudden that brings in a bunch of books that have been classic pieces of literature into question. Even the Bible, for example, which has lots of sexual content in it. Would that be something that would be subject to a ban? I think we would all agree that that should not be subject to a ban. Romeo and Juliet. There's a whole bunch of books that could potentially come under question. And what's happening now is, as a result of this measure, the school districts, school librarians, classroom teachers are starting to remove materials where there's a question, where there's a gray area. They're just removing these books from their classrooms and their libraries. And we're seeing what's called soft banning from school librarians who are choosing not to order certain books that they think could be questionable, because there's penalties in not following this particular measure. And then there's also, this idea that book fairs are being canceled because they're not sure, the schools and districts aren't sure whether these book fairs, when they come in, Scholastic or whoever comes in, whether those books are going to comply with this particular regulation. So it's very alarming. It's very concerning. It is a road to further and further censorship. And, we start here, but what's going to be the next step in this censorship? And, I'm not a slippery slope kind of arguer, or I try not to get into that, but this is really concerning that this is where we are. We're starting with such vague language, and we're already seeing dramatic effects across the state in terms of books being removed from our schools. And where will this head next? What type of books will be challenged by people in the community? And will those books remain in our classrooms and our libraries? How far is this going to go? So what I thought we would do is bring on two experts. We're going to bring on Jamie Gregory and Cassie Owens Moore. They're both members of the South Carolina Association of School Librarians. Jamie's the president, and Cassie is the chair of remind me again, Cassie, what?
Intellectual Freedom
Chair. at SCASL. So South Carolina Association of School Librarians. We call them SCASL here in the state. And I just want to thank you both for your courage and for being on here in the program tonight to talk a little bit more about this so we can build awareness across the state in terms of what's happening with these book bans. So is there anything you want to say before, in terms of introducing yourselves, before we get started with the conversation?
We can just get right into it. We have both been, I think, I don't want to speak for Cassie, but this is a personal issue for both of us as well as a professional one. And I'm sure we'll probably get into that. And that's true for lots of librarians, which is why it's great that you're having this session. So thank you.
Yes, thank you, Todd. We appreciate it.
Yeah. So as a parent, I've had 2 children have now graduated from public schools in South Carolina, and my daughter is in 9th, just started high school this year. Say a prayer for me. But we, one of this, and I taught for 15 years, and this is never this kind of censorship issue. Just it's like it's 2024, and it's so weird to me that now we're facing this censorship issue when it really hasn't been an issue, because every single book that my child has been assigned to read as part of the curriculum has never really been, there's never been a real problem with that. And the books that they self-select from the library, if there's something they bring home that I don't want them reading, I can handle that. I can call the school library and say, hey, put a hold on these types of books or these particular books, or put a hold altogether and then reach out to me if my child wants to, if I don't trust them to check out these materials. So the idea that parents didn't already have control is a myth. And that's one of the things that's so frustrating, is like you're putting out a fire that doesn't even really exist, except for a handful of extremists who don't like particular books and then want to strip me as a parent and my children and children across South Carolina the freedom of choice. And it's like when they talk about parental choice and parental power, and it's like you're actually disempowering me through regulations like this. So let's start there. What is the most concerning part of Regulation 43-170 to both of you?
I think it's what you just said. For me, just taking away the opportunity for parents and students to have a conversation about books. I remember in 2018, I was a classroom teacher, but I had a huge classroom library. And I remember a student wanting to read Girl in Pieces. Girl in Pieces is about a girl who cuts herself. And again, I thought, okay, just give me a second. Just made a phone call home. Hey, your daughter is interested in reading this book. I want to give you a heads up. Is it okay? Is it not okay? You tell me, because I can help her choose something else. And I just had it like my personal book. And the mom said, thank you for calling. Who's the author? Yeah, let her get it. I'm going to go buy a copy myself and we can read it together.
Right.
And I thought, okay, not, hey, let's pull it. I mean, I just made a phone call. And the thing is that I think that if given the opportunity, a lot of parents would go that route. Like, thanks for letting me know. Hey, I'd like to read, because there's a place for conversations, to happen. I just had a student this year who she's, one of my 6th graders. Her mom does not want her reading any romance books. She knows that. So she said, I don't read romance books. My mom thinks I'm a little young for that. And I said, oh, okay. So we went to fantasy and just found something else. But she knew what she wasn't supposed to read. And so her mom didn't come to the school and say, all romance books need to go because my child can't read this book. Exactly. She had a conversation with her daughter. Her daughter had a conversation with me. And so she understands that there's nothing wrong with these books. Her mom told her, I think you're a little young for this. And they just went another way. And so the thing with these regulations is that it diminishes that opportunity for there to be a conversation, for a parent to read something with a student if they so choose. If that parent had said, no, I don't want her reading that, that would have been fine. But again, I had other parents who were like, anything my child wants to read. My child plays video games all day. If she wants to read, let her read, that kind of thing. And it just bothers me that there's this idea that librarians and classroom teachers and other people who work in the school are trying to take away this power. Because I said 2018. So 6 years ago, I was talking to parents, and it was happening even before then. Teachers have always communicated with parents. Librarians have always said, hey, come in and see what I'm doing. And there's this idea that something sinister or covert is happening in schools, and that's just not the case. And that's what really infuriates me.
Jamie, how about you?
Yeah, what I was thinking of is where you just stopped. It delegitimizes the librarian profession,
Right.
and it sows distrust among parents and the educators working in the building. And like Cassie just told a beautiful story, that I think encapsulates the school librarian profession. That's what we do. We get to know people, and we have conversations with them, and we help them according to their needs and values. I mean, like Cassie said, she didn't say, well, I think you should read romance, so here's a romance book. You know, we don't do stuff like that. And all of that sowing of distrust is very intentional, because we know that people like Ellen Weaver, she's made it very clear that she has her own political agenda.
Right.
And so she is using gaslighting and other, well-used and well-known techniques to delegitimize our profession and to sow that distrust so that she can implement. I'm so sorry. My cat is running all over my table. That's why I'm bouncing. Because ultimately they want to delegitimize the whole public education system.
That's right.
So what better way to do it than to call the educators themselves criminals and accuse them of felonies so that nobody wants to go to the schools.
That's right. I find it really interesting is that, this conservatives have always been about power being decentralized. So like they don't like power at the federal level or at the state level. They want more power in the hands of local people, which I don't generally have a problem with that unless civil rights are being violated. But it's weird that this is like the exact opposite, that they're saying we don't trust local schools. And first of all, we don't trust, they don't trust parents, school librarians, teachers, and students to make decisions on their own. But then it's like we don't even trust the school or the district to make the right decision. So now a person who's an extremist, some Moms for Liberty person comes in, makes a book challenge. The district says, no, we're going to keep it. But then now it goes to, my understanding is it would go to potentially the State Board of Education if you appoint political cronies to that. And I'm not casting aspersions on anybody, but it's like taking that power and saying, we're going to have a small statewide group determined for the rest of us, every school, every district, every teacher, every student, every parent, what books are they consider morally acceptable or age appropriate and which ones aren't. I find that to be a dangerous precedent. We should have as much power and freedom. If we're really about freedom and liberty, the Freedom Caucus, the Moms for Liberty is so poorly named. If we're really about liberty and freedom, it seems to me like we would want as much freedom and liberty in the hands of parents and students as possible without giving this tool to extremists to make moral judgments for the rest of us.
I agree.
That's exactly what it is.
That is. That's it. That's it.
And two, what you're hitting on is all of our school communities are different, as they should be. Yes. My school community is not the same as Cassie's. I don't have the same exact books that Cassie does, nor should I. We don't have the same students. They don't have the same exact needs. That should be a beautiful thing that people who advocate for liberty, could get behind.
Right.
Because the thing is that I wish more people understood the way the library is even organized and the books. They are centered on students. This is a student-centered space. They have so much say-so into what they want. Like I posted on social media that 2 weeks ago, I had a group of 6th graders come in and say, your Marvel books are all over the place. Can we have a Marvel section? So what did I do? I created a Marvel section. And then I had a group of boys come in, well, boys and girls. I won't, they said, Ms. Moore, this is really nice. You have a graphic novel section, but manga is not really the same as a graphic novel. We kind of need our own section. So what did I do today? I pull all the manga books and I put them in their own like it is. And the thing is that the students come in and they're like, you listen to us? Like you do what we ask? So it's such a student-centered space. I have no agenda. My agenda is to serve my school community.
Right.
I ask teachers, what do you need? I ask students, what do you need? Guidance counselors, what kind of book? Do we need more empathy? Do we need more, emotional health books? Like, what do we need? And that's what I curate. I consider myself a cultural curator. I want to make sure that our school community is represented in this library. And when you start to do that, you have to represent all the students. You can't just
Right.
represent the students that, look and think like you. You have to represent your students because you've already shown them that that's what you're about. And if you stop at a certain place, then you're sending a message that you're not as important or that, your family can't be, represented. And I can't do that. I
Right.
can't do that.
One of the things that I think this regulation was intended to do was to instill fear, and I've seen already reports of a lot of teachers confused, and I think even at the district level, people are confused about what exactly does this mean, and what books qualify as having depictions of sexual content, what books are technically age appropriate, and starting to err on the side of, well, we'll just take that out. If we have any question, we're just going to take it out. And I personally know school librarians who've said, I'm not ordering that. If it has anything like at all, like I'm not even ordering it anymore.
Mhm.
Talk about like the chilling effect that this has on school librarians across the state in terms of instilling fear and then them sort of doing some self-censorship.
I've gotten emails from librarians across the state, and their emails have been, what exactly will I get fired for?
Right.
Like that just broke my heart. Like what if, will I get fired for this? I mean, come on. It devastates me. What will I get fired for? Because the thing is that people don't understand. It's not only books, it's posters. It's anything that can be used as instructional, anything that's communicating a message. People are really questioning, like, should I even put this poster up? A lot of librarians have the all are welcome here kind of posters. And they're wondering, okay, if that all is in rainbow colors, am I going to get fired?
Right.
I had a teacher reach out to me and she said she's had this poster, like it's just traveled with her. It's probably like 8 years. And she didn't know what to do because her AP said, I think you need to take that down. And she was like, take what down? Like she was so confused. Like, how am I going to, like, what are you talking about? No, that can be seen as, she was like, as welcoming, is that can be seen, like she was so confused. And I think that that's happening. And you're right. A lot of librarians are self-censoring. I had a librarian, a local librarian reach out to me and said, I know this book's been out since 2016, but do you think we should move it? I'm just going to move mine. Are you going to move yours? And I was like, no. I mean, I just didn't, because it was fine. In my opinion, it was fine. I mean, it's been out on the shelf since 2016, before I even became a librarian. And so it's troublesome, first of all, that people whose sole desire is to engage students in
Right.
reading and to make them feel welcome and safe, they are now asking questions like, can I be fired for making students feel welcome and safe? Can I be fired for making sure students are represented? Can I be fired for just having a welcome sign on my, and this does not make sense. It's 2024. It does not make sense. And it just hurts my heart that
Right.
you are thinking that way, that you want to do what's right, but you also need to stay employed. And it's just,
Yeah.
that should never be something that you feel like you have to debate.
Yeah. And it's not even just staying employed. It's also like like somebody mentioned here, Lacey was mentioning, it's also like that people are already struggling with stress as it is. Like the teaching is a stressful profession. Being a school librarian can be very stressful. And now you're just saying like, I just can't deal with one more thing. Like I cannot
Right.
deal with like a book challenge or my name being in the paper, or people doxing me, or people like intimidating me on social media and calling me a pedophile or whatever.
Mhm.
Like I can't deal with that. Like I'm already up to here with stress and everything.
And you
So
know what they're doing? They're boxing up their libraries. They're just boxing them up. They're like saying, you know what? I don't know what I can have, so I'm just not going to have anything. And they're boxing them up, and they're saying, I can't. That's another repercussion of all of this. They're just saying, you know, I don't know. There's just too many things, and I just can't take the stress of it. So they're just getting rid of classroom libraries.
Jamie, as president of Scazzle, what are you seeing in this with this self-censorship?
Yeah, much the same thing. We get emails, people asking for advice or telling us what's going on in their districts.
Mhm.
We have a new form that we're sharing with people, not just Scazzle members, but any educator in the state, asking them if they can to keep track of how much money they're spending to adhere to this regulation. So when you get rid of books, can you kind of estimate how much that costs? If you have to add, if you can add new materials to replace what you have to get rid of, what did those cost? And then the time that you spend this year adhering to this regulation. And as much data as we can get, we would like to this year, because as you know, the regulation states that the State Department estimates that this regulation won't cost anything. And of course, professional educators know that that's not true. And so we would like to have some data as the year goes on for the end of the year to say, this is collectively across the state what was reported to us.
Right.
Time spent and money spent, because you know they're not paying us more or extra. And ultimately, the only people who lose are our students. We know that what the real struggles are in our state for education. And the idea that you would be packing up entire classroom libraries is not addressing any of those problems.
Yeah.
So people need to call Ellen Weaver's office every single day, especially if you have a child in a public school in this state, demanding accountability for her. Why are you not actually trying to solve any of the problems that we have?
Yeah. That's the thing. It's like I think Tim Wall said it's like we were interested in trying to figure out how we can feed children and give them like a free lunch and take care of them. And the other people are just concerned with how can we remove as many books as as possible that don't align with our particular worldview or set of moral values.
Yeah, we know it's their political strategy, because that's all it comes down to. Again, Ellen Weaver is very open about her Moms for Liberty affiliation.
Right.
And they just want to create fear and paranoia, because if the punishment is you don't adhere to this, we'll bring you in front of the state board and not even tell you what could happen to you, of course you're going to try to follow it.
Right.
Actually, in Oklahoma, the news just broke this week. The teacher who a while ago shared the QR code to the public library in New York, Oklahoma revoked her teaching license.
Yeah.
And Ellen Weaver is good friends with that superintendent in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So we're not overreacting.
What? Yeah, no, I don't think it's an overreaction, and especially when I saw last week where Greenville County is canceling its book fairs. I mean, think about if that doesn't set off alarm bells for parents and people across the state.
Yes.
That in the entire district, one of the largest, if not the largest district in the state, has to cancel book fairs because of this regulation, because of how they're interpreting it. Like, what's happening?
Yes.
What is happening? Like, this is.
Well, I want to point out too, to further your point, from my understanding, communication that I've seen from the district, it's because they wanted Scholastic to verify that they wouldn't send the school anything that would violate the regulation. So this is a private business, and we're in America. We don't have prior review in America. We don't make private companies submit what they publish to the whims of a state law. We don't do that here, nor should we, right? And you would think the people who scream liberty the loudest would understand that. So we no Scholastic, and so we don't want publishers then to be like, well, if I can't make money, I guess I better start publishing what is under the regulation in South Carolina.
Right.
That's called fascism.
Yes, yes.
Um,
And the thing is that the book, when Greenville County canceled the book fairs, that's when a lot of people said, wait a minute, what? Like, I don't know if people understood it on the level that we understand it until that happened, because that's when my emails really started ramping up, not from librarians, not even from other educators, just from general public. They were like, what is this about Greenville canceling book fairs? Okay, now what is this about? What is this regulation? And for the first time, now these are people who have children in school, and like the first time they really started thinking about what all of this means, because it is scary. It is, a lot of kids just look forward to, it's the book fair. It's the
Right.
book fair. And so, a lot of people were concerned and upset. And I told them exactly what you told them, Jamie. Okay, her name is Ellen Weaver. I need you to give her a call. Give that office a call and voice your concern. Don't stand in the corner and be angry about this. I need you to pick up the phone. I need you to write a letter. I need you to get involved in this. Start going to your school board meetings and talking about this. I can't say
one thing that you have to say. I'm sorry, Cassie.
No, go ahead.
Is I don't need the state to tell me what my kid is ready to read.
Right.
I'm his mother, and they're looking for some kind of scientific research that says when everybody is 10 years old, this is the book that's developmentally and age appropriate. That doesn't exist. Our kids all develop at different rates. And because I'm his mom, I am the best one suited for that, not the state government.
That's right.
Absolutely. Because I think that somewhere along the line, people forget that you don't, sit all babies on the floor at 6 months and say, crawl, go for it. Oh, you can't do it? Okay, then what does this mean? Like you just have this inner, clock within you, like that sixth grader who said to me, my mom says you're a bit young, you can't read romance. Whereas I got other sixth grade girls like fighting and clawing to get to the new romance book. And they're all right. Everybody's right because it's right for you at this stage in your life, and the people, the adults in your life, the guardians, the caregivers in your life have had this conversation with you. And you're right. It's just the way it goes. Absolutely.
This regulation, my understanding, it wasn't even passed by the state legislature. It was sort of a unilateral regulation that kind of went a little bit under the radar, I think, for folks, and then got implemented. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but that's like, to me, something that has this much impact and power. It should be something that the people decide, not just one person or a small group of people. It should be something that we all, and honestly, stripping away a district's power to say these are the books, these are fine for us, and we've made this decision. We saw this Beaufort did I think a beautiful job in sort of navigating this and saying, why don't we bring community members together? We can bring people from the school, from students and parents together and talk about the different books that maybe are in a gray area, and then decide together what we want to include and what we decide we're going to remove. And then maybe there's a handful of things that are removed, but you're not just opening it up for like challenge after challenge after challenge. And my fear is that this regulation is so vague and so like wide ranging. And I'm concerned when they talk about depictions of sexual conduct. What books are you concerned about? Because I think about, like, when I was in 10th grade and I moved to South Carolina, I remember studying Sophocles and Oedipus Rex. That's a book that talks about a guy murdering his father and having relations with his mom. I'm pretty sure that would fall under this regulation. So it's like we have classic pieces of literature now that are suddenly thrust into the conversation of whether or not they're going to be allowed. And it seems like this opens a Pandora's box. What are some books that you're concerned about getting banned?
The LGBTQ books. I'm just going to say it. because those are the books that I think a lot of this stems from. And that's so frustrating to me because, in my opinion, when you start banning specific books, specific types of books, you're essentially trying to erase groups of people. Back in 2021, the concern was books by Black and Brown authors. It was what we didn't want anybody to be offended. We didn't want anybody to be hurt. We didn't. So to me, that was trying to say how you're feeling in this moment, or these kind of issues, they don't matter as much. And that's exactly how I took it. That's exactly how students took it. We had some conversations about books and things like that. Now, I think that concern is about the LGBTQ community. And in my opinion, when you start, like I said, targeting a group of people, you're just basically diminishing that group of people.
Yeah.
Like they don't matter. And the thing again, it just infuriates me is that we have LGBTQ, staff members, faculty members, educators, families. What are we saying to these families? Like, how can this be interpreted? You're not as important. There's something about your life that doesn't matter. And we are the government, the people who keep making these regulations. They are wrong if they don't think students don't notice this, because they do notice this. Lacey, you're absolutely right. Books are mirrors and windows and sliding glass doors. And, that's exactly what we're talking about. And how are we going to develop students who are empathetic and are compassionate and are understanding about people who look and think and feel and love in a different way if they're never even exposed to the books? Books are a safe place to experience the world, especially when you're surrounded by, strong and caring librarians, which is what the SCASL is, SCASL is composed of. When you have these really caring and understanding educators who can help them navigate, when we start to say, well, we can't even talk about it, because the idea is that if we don't talk about it, they won't know about it. And that is wrong. And that is absolutely wrong. These kids still know what's going on in the world. They still understand these different groups of people, but are we teaching them the way to engage with this kind of text, to not even engage with this kind of text, to engage with people, to engage with people. Books are such a safe place to facilitate all that.
Jamie, what are some books you're concerned about being?
This is actually my 20th year teaching, and I've always been at the high school level, but we are concerned about the excretory functions part of the regulation. So I do know, in my limited knowledge of picture books, that there's books about how animals poop because it's hilarious and kids love it. And that's great. And the regulation says no excretory functions. And so we're doing this?
No, everybody poops.
Right. We can't talk about that or know it happens. And that's a little ridiculous, but it's part of the regulation. So it's not as clear cut as some of the other sexual conduct. We've always, 1984, that's going to be on the chopping block. Shakespeare, and Ellen Weaver loves to talk about Shakespeare. Well, that's gone.
Right.
It's like we said, we're asking people if they can track how much time they spend this year adhering to this regulation. Who's going to read every book in their library?
And it's not only the books that they're going to take out, but it's also the books that are not going to be ordered.
Yes,
because of the fear. So they're like it's almost the public in general and students will be blind to the censorship. Other than like, are there any books about like you said LGBTQ with LGBTQ characters? But like the public is generally going to be blind to that form of censorship. They may hear about the book fairs, or if like a particular book like To Kill a Mockingbird or something is removed, but they don't even know that a school librarian's going to that order form and saying, oh, not that one, oh, not that one, oh, not that one, and all the missed opportunities for great literature because of the fear that this regulation.
Well, I think what you're getting at too, that we should point out, these people have kind of overtaken some of the terminology in our profession. So they like to argue, oh, it's not a book ban. You can go buy it from Amazon.
Yeah.
That's not what book ban means. If you had a material available anywhere, any library, and you then remove it and prohibit someone from adding it back, that is a book ban. And Cassie knows for sure some kids can only come to the library. They can't order books on Amazon. They can't get to the public library.
What a privileged point.
Yes.
Right. I'm going to have to take it down. But that's such a privileged way of thinking.
Right.
Hey, if you want this book, order it from Amazon. If you want this book, go to a bookstore. If you want this book, go to, the library. You're coming from a place of thinking that parents have this transportation to get you to and from. And I wish these people would know. I wish I could share with them how books saved my life. I didn't have an abusive home or anything like that, but books were my world. They were just my thing. And it was just such a joy to just go to the library and get lost. I could just escape everything. I see that with so many students. And I hate this idea that, oh, well, if they want it, then their parents can go order it for them. No, you can't. Not when you're trying to order, not when you got to buy groceries and gas and you can barely do. I am supposed to represent the students in my school. I serve those students. They are mine. And what a disservice if a student who just happens to be a part of the LGBTQ community comes to me and says, am I the only person who feels like this? Or do you have any books about other kids who feel like this? And the thing is that, any book that has any like LGBTQ characters in it, I do read them. I take them home. I don't really have a life. So I just bring them home and I read them. And these books aren't pushing anything. It's more of the questioning. It's just more of the, you're okay. You feel how you feel. And I don't understand how people can be against that, especially if you know the facts, the statistics that Valerie posted about LGBTQ young people having an accepting adult in their lives. They can just do this. They can feel like, hey, I'm okay. One book, and then I'm gonna stop because I'll get on my soapbox, was The Civil War of Amos Abernathy. And it's about this boy who starts to do this project on Civil War, soldiers during the Civil War. And he comes across this character who they realize was probably trans during that time, without that terminology. That student came to me, tears in his eyes, and said, I knew I wasn't going crazy. I knew, come on. I knew, I can almost cry thinking about it. This is what these books do. It just affirmed something, and there shouldn't be anything wrong with that.
And this is what Valerie, I think, was getting at in her comment, which is, to me, if we're going to impose morality, let's impose this kind of morality where, LGBTQ young people who had accepting adults in their lives reported significantly lower odds of attempting suicide compared to those who did not, and having access to books and things. And so this gets to the point of this really, to me, despicable and nefarious narrative pushed by certain elements, that by simply having those books in your library that might have a trans character or LGBTQ character, that you are trying to promote a certain type of sexuality. You're trying to convert them, or even worse, that you're trying to groom them as a pedophile. And I've been told don't use their language, but I think we need to name it, because it's like, this is really happening.
Yeah, if you're going to accuse me of a felony,
right?
Yeah.
And I think, and we have to stand up for the school librarians who are feeling scared, like, I don't want to be called, oh my God, I don't want to be called a groomer or pedophile. So I think that understandably, that's a scary thing to be called, because
Yes.
that could lead to violence, that could lead to losing your job. I mean, and nobody wants to be associated with that. And I literally have never known an educator who was like, oh, you want to groom some kids? Like, this is just a fevered fantasy concocted by the right. And it goes back to your point, Jamie, which is, let's undermine trust in public education at whatever cost. And we'll do it in the most despicable ways, the most immoral ways. We'll actually accuse really good, kind people who are just good-hearted, like Valerie, just trying to help young people, like what you're describing, Cassie, just trying to help young people feel okay, like feel like their identity is not something to be ashamed of. Their sexuality, how they feel about that, is not something to be ashamed of. That's not grooming. That's just being a compassionate human being, being kind to people. It's not pushing an agenda. It's not wokeism. It's not a woke agenda. It's all BS. It's just a narrative, and people need to understand what's behind this. It's just a narrative to destroy the public trust in public education. And the people who can make money off of it by privatizing it and using these vouchers, those are the people that can then benefit. And so the idea is just to dismantle and destroy public education at whatever cost. And I find that just really infuriating, and I think we have to fight back. So my next question,
and they know, I mean, your community knows you, Cassie. My community knows me. So, if you hear all the political rhetoric, but then you're dealing with actual people. Well, okay, maybe somehow you align with Ellen Weaver's ideology, but you know me, and I have my own children. Cassie has her own children. It doesn't work. Those things don't go together once you actually know people.
And once you actually, and this is something else that really burns me up. Oh, Cassie's in a mood tonight. But this is something else that burns me up. You're not going to tell the story of my library. I'm not going to give you that power. You've never, especially if you've never even, because once you come into my library, once you interact with my students, you can't think that way. You just can't. Again, it is a safe space for every single student. It's just a safe space. Someone mentioned students who were unhoused, and I was talking to the counselor about a student. And so now we are creating a crate in the closet so that student can leave things at school because he is transient, and they're working with him on that. But in the meantime, here's a space for you to keep things at school, and it's safe, and I'll lock the closet, and there you go. We are a safe space. The library is a safe space. I think schools in general are safe spaces where you can be fed. At our school, you can get clothes, you get support, we are doing everything we can. And I know that my school is not an anomaly. I know there are several schools who just make school a safe space. And so I just feel like, how dare you attack what we're doing, especially if you've never even walked into a school. You've not, walked in. I had someone question my books over the summer, and I said, you're welcome to come to the library, just asking question after, well, I heard they're doing this. And I said, you're welcome to come to my library. And she said, goodness, I haven't been in a school since I left, and that was 40 years ago. What are you talking about then? Then what are you talking about? Like, come in, look around first. Let's see you in a space, not just my school, whatever school, but don't start repeating that mess. And you've never been in a school. You haven't been in a library since you left school. So that's just wrong. It's just wrong.
Jamie?
Yeah, and you can't expect a student to go to school in a hostile environment every day and reach their potential. Then if you think that, then you don't know anything about child psychology and child development. And the faculty deserve the same respect as well. Yes. You have the right to go to school. You have the right to go to work and not be threatened and not be in an unsafe environment, especially because we live in America. It's just unbelievable.
Absolutely. And Lacey made this point. She said, educators and librarians make up a large number of South Carolina voters. It's time to make our voices heard. And that kind of helps me segue to the next question here, which is, we need to, we have allowed a certain group of people, Moms for Liberty and that ilk, to dictate the narrative around this issue for too long.
Mm.
I think a lot of us have been scared to speak up because we don't want to be the one that the thumb sticking out and then having what's happened to librarians, which is FOIA requests and other types of intimidation tactics, whether it's online or investigations threatened into those school librarians. This is why this concept of solidarity is so important. And I need every educator and really every community member out there to understand this. If we all get together and speak together and support each other and have each other's back, even if your school and your district's doing everything the right way, but as long as there is a student in this state or in this country really that is really being victimized by this book banning policy, and as long as there are teachers being accused of being groomers and school librarians of being whatever, we have to stand together and vociferously push back against that, because we can't allow them to continue to control the narrative. We have to reshape this narrative, and it does. And there are effective ways that we can do that. It starts with, first of all, we need to be aware of what we're dealing with. So I encourage people to read the regulation 43-170. If somebody out there has a link to it, please put it in there. I encourage you to read it and understand it and think through it. And then, like you said, if you're a community member, go and speak to your school librarian, your local librarians. Go and visit and talk with them. But I want to ask you both, what do you think? What is SCASL's sort of strategy, or what is your individually, personally, your idea of how we can effectively fight back against this?
I think they're going to shoot themselves in their own foot. It's already so absurd, people can't believe it. And they just do more and more absurd, radical things.
Right.
It's not sustainable. It's not lawful also. I wouldn't be shocked if we see a lawsuit. Because this is not the first time a group has tried these tactics before. So, right. We might have to let that process play out. But in the meantime, like I already mentioned, we have a new Google form. We want people to report how much money and how much time they're spending this year doing this instead of their actual jobs helping children learn to love reading.
It's like so obvious. It's just so obvious. Like, yes, can we just let these people, it's already hard enough. Let them just help children love to read.
We just like books. I don't know.
Book challenges and worrying about some, like the one or two wackadoodles in the community who just want to challenge every book. Like, these are professional people. They've vetted these books, and if you have a question about it, we'll talk through it, but like, it's just the time wasted and the fear induced. It's just insane. It's insane. And I hope that you're right, Jamie. I hope that the pendulum swings back here. Cassie, what are your thoughts on that?
My strategy has been to get in front of as many people as possible and invite them into my library. Yeah. I invite. My social media is mostly funny things my students say and pictures from the library. I want you to see what we do, what happens in our space, the kind of community I serve, the support, and I'm fortunate. I'm so blessed to be in the community that I'm in, because they are very supportive. My parents, the local businesses are very supportive, but that's not everybody's experience. And understanding that, I get in front of as many people as I can and talk about what school librarians do, the kind of people that I know. I talk about Jamie, I talk about Tamara Cox all the time. I talk about all the people in SCASL, Emily, just so many people, and I get ideas from them. And I'm like, hey, my friend does this. Oh, my friend does this. And I just talk about who we are and what we do. I talk about books. I share books. I share books with adults, with kids, with tweens, anybody. I do it Saturdays on. I just got
Stop signs, building.
go to another event. Like I said, no life,
Right.
no life. But I'm going to, be at another event in like October, sharing books. Anytime I can get in front of people to just shine a light on books and what we do as a profession,
Yeah.
I'm there. And I encourage other librarians to, hey, redesign that web page, create a social media account, link something, because like you said, controlling the narrative, I'm going to control the narrative about who I am as a librarian and what my library does. I refuse to let someone else, describe who I am or what I do.
And getting your students to advocate. Why do you, and they'll tell you a million reasons why.
Yes.
Yeah. And we had, for those of you who are interested in getting students involved, we had Jonathan and Claire from Dalo who posted some comments on there, doing an amazing job with young people. And those students articulated better than anybody. I mean, why this is an important issue. And I just want to thank both of them and all the students who are part of Dalo.
Yes.
If you're interested, I'd love to see those Dalo chapters everywhere and just have the students speak up, because this is, as we've discussed, yes, this is having some serious impacts on school librarians and teachers, but ultimately all of us are concerned about the students, right? We all care about this. If we're supposed to be students first, we need to be thinking about what their needs are, and taking books away from them is not the approach. It's like, I think we all agree. Like, there may be a book that my daughter brings home and I may think, I don't know if you're ready for that, or if that's a book I really want you reading. It never occurs to me that I should go to the school and then say, remove it and don't let any other child read it. It just doesn't occur to me that I should assert that kind of authority and moral value judgment onto other families. And so I just refuse to accept it on mine. I think there may be
something funny, Todd. I went to the doctor, and the doctor gave me a medicine. It was common medicine. Most people take the medicine. It's good medicine. I take the medicine and have an allergic reaction. I call the doctor. She's, bring it back, bring it back. Now, I didn't write anybody else and say this medication, I had an allergic reaction to this medication. Therefore, it is unhealthy for all people. This needs to be removed. No, we just found a medicine that worked for me, period. Right. And we can understand it in that sense. Like, I started on this, or, I got this and it didn't. Why are books? Why are we saying like books? Like, your daughter can't read this book. Yeah. You have a conversation with your daughter. Hey, let's find another book. Your go-to is not, okay, I'm going to the school board. I'm going to the newspaper. I'm going to tell everybody that this book isn't good for your child. But it was exactly what this other child needed. And I don't know why people just don't understand that. It's not taking away anybody's right. It's giving you, all the rights. And then just last week, the teacher was teaching a book, and the student said, I'm not comfortable reading this book. We gave her an alternative book.
Right.
The end.
End. Yeah, I had students who were Jehovah's Witnesses who couldn't read certain books, and we just accommodated that. Exactly. It's not a big deal. We've been
doing that since forever. I did that at the beginning of my teaching career. I remember. It's not a big deal.
Years.
We do it right. This is not a new thing.
Yeah, we are not trying to indoctrinate students with a particular worldview. We're more than happy to accommodate families. It's just we're not letting you dictate your worldview onto us. And it's like they're almost like it's almost like projection. They're like accusing you of the thing that they're actually doing, which is parental choice. And what we mean by that is by taking away other parents' choices. Like it is absolutely absurd. It's absurd to make.
We're kind of concerned too. We don't want it to go so far. If there's a lot of rumors, there is no list that the State Department has released at this point of banned books. But with the problem with a statewide regulation too is you start thinking, well, then why do we even have school districts? Why don't we just have one big mess that everybody has to do the same thing all the time? And then, well, why do you even need a school librarian if the state's just going to tell you what books you're allowed to have? and that's just obviously not the kind of school environment that you want.
Right.
Lacey, I want to answer this question. So she asked if it was because listen, if my daughter brought a book home and wanted to read it, I'd be super thrilled with her reading, because she doesn't do a lot of reading, and I'd be like excited for her to get. I'm just saying it's within the realm of possibility that I see her reading a book, and if I had an issue with it, I would talk to her about it. I'm just saying the parent should have the choice. I've never censored my kids from reading a particular book. There may have been some movies or some music that I heard that I'm like, I don't really like that. That's, can we turn that off? But in terms of books, I'm hopeful. I love for them to read. My son is gay, and for me, like the idea that he couldn't go to his school library and find a book with a character that represents who he is and kind of helps him understand that, a character who is also gay and like experiencing, being a teenager and some of the challenges that come along with that, some of the thoughts that a young person like that might have. Like, why would I not want my son to have that book? It's not. It's not that I think the school's trying to get him to be something. I think it's that they're just saying, like Cassie, what you said. It's like, the whole thing is you're not indoctrinating, because you're not inserting any of your particular values or needs or wants or your own personal perspective when selecting materials. You're saying, I've got to have materials for all kinds of students from all kinds of backgrounds who have all different kinds of experiences, religious experiences, political experiences, racial experiences, because there's all these different identities. And if we have access to that, all those different things, it's not only my son that can benefit, but like a heterosexual student can benefit from reading about that and develop some empathy and understanding and compassion for what somebody else is going through who's different than they are. And that's just as important as representation. So.
I mean, and you're in wellness. I mean, I don't, it's a pro-life thing, isn't it? That we want people we're concerned about everybody's mental health. And like you both have already said, from faculty and students, what does it show when you have these conversations out loud of, oh, we just can't have your stories in here?
Right.
I mean,
your stories in the restricted section, right? So
right, what that does to a person.
Right. Well, thank you both for your time tonight. We're coming close to 8:00, and I want to honor that time. I want to thank you both for having the courage.
Thank you.
And really, really appreciate that. And I'm hoping that as we move forward, we can find some effective ways to build coalitions of people who want to push back on this and just have some common sense ideas around the books that are in our school library. So thank you so much for both being here tonight.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. That's Cassie Owens Moore and Jamie Gregory, both members of the South Carolina Association of School Librarians. You can actually join that association and not be a school librarian and support their mission, which is just to help kids. I don't know what their mission statement is particularly, but I think that school librarians generally just want to get kids excited about reading books and find books that they can connect with. For me, it was the day that I read Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. Once I read that book and I read about Holden Caulfield, and I connected with that character and I resonated with a lot of his thinking. I mean, I was hooked into reading. It took that long though. I was like 14, 15 years old when I read that book. I mean, when I was young, I read like Encyclopedia Brown and stuff like that. But it was J.D. Salinger, and that book just hooked me. And then I just wanted to read a bunch of other stuff. I got into Steinbeck. I got into Hemingway. I got into a bunch of other classic pieces of literature. And all of those books, it helped inform the person that I became, helped me develop empathy, helped me develop compassion. And I'm still working on it, and it's still a work in progress. But the books kind of help open our eyes to the experiences of other people. And when you start to strip those experiences away, because some people might be offended by them, you're removing the opportunity. And Catcher in the Rye is one of the most banned books in the history of America. You would have taken that opportunity from me as a young person to really connect with that book and then to develop a love for reading. And I don't want that to happen to any students. I really, really don't. I want our students to have access to all the books that they need. And the thing I really don't want is our teachers and our school librarians to have to live in this culture of fear when their jobs are already hard enough. We don't need to allow this culture of fear to continue. We have to collectively fight back. And even if you are unaffected by it, so you're teaching PE or you're teaching art or whatever, and it's not affecting you yet. We have to stand in solidarity with these school librarians. We have to stand in solidarity with classroom teachers, and we have to stand in solidarity with every single student that enters our school building. They deserve that. And I forgot where I heard this quote, but it's stuck with me, and it's something like, future generations of students are begging us from their knees to stand up for them and to fight back against this fascist nonsense. So I really, really hope that you will stand up and speak out. I want to thank everybody who tuned in tonight. Lacey, thank you so much for all the comments you gave us. Valerie posted a lot of links, including, here's a link to you. If you go to the Facebook page, you'll be able to click that and check out membership in Skazzle. Thanks to Marcella, thanks to Todd, thanks to, so many people. Jonathan, Claire from Dalo, thank you so much for checking us out. Appreciate everybody who came on and watched the live stream tonight. I do want to share just a few things with you before we sign off. Those things are the following. This is really important. So stick around. Don't leave yet. Don't go to watch football yet. So a couple of things. First of all, coming up on the 22nd of October, we're going to hear from Jaheim President. He's a second-year teacher. That's going to be from 7 to 8 o'clock. I'll go through these quickly. Mel Moore, how to advocate in the Palmetto State. That's going to be September 12th at 7 o'clock. Mev McIntosh, also on advocacy, September 24th. We have one on mindfulness and how mindfulness changed your life from Jaleesa White on October 8th at 7 o'clock. We're going to be talking about gut health and anxiety on October 24th. We have an induction symposium for our early career educators coming up on November 9th. We've got Erica Ayers coming up talking about supporting student health. We have our Cool Coaching, which is the one-to-one free online support for induction educators, teachers. This is going to be every Tuesday and Thursday starting next week from 6 to 8 o'clock. Just go to cool.us/coaching and you'll get connected to one of these three amazing educators. Ask them questions, ask for advice, bounce some ideas off them, and they will give you some really great coaching tips. We have Cool Beans coming up for also for teacher induction folks. That's our first episode is going to be September 26th at 6 o'clock. And just announced, my good friend, Jed Derryberry. Everybody in the state knows who Jed is. Jed is going to come on next week on the 4th and talk about LGBTQ plus advocacy. And this is kind of goes along with what we were talking about tonight, which is really standing in solidarity, not only for these book bans, but standing in solidarity with LGBTQ teachers and students, pushing back against these really damaging narratives and these narratives that are actually causing people harm. Not just like insults, but mental health harm. And so we need to stand up and push back, and we will talk about how we can do that collectively. And Lacey says she can't wait for Jed. I can't either. He's always a hoot. A lot of fun. So thank you for tuning in. I love you all. Last little bit is, if you are an educator in South Carolina and you are not a member of the SCEA, I don't know what you're doing. You should join our movement and be a part of what we're trying to build to create the kind of schools that all educators and students deserve. And you can tell we have a lot of work to do. If you're interested in joining that movement, you can do that right here at jointhescea.org. Go there and sign up to be a member if you're an educator. Lots of great benefits. And NEA, you're joining not only your local and your state associations, but you're joining the largest labor union in the country, the National Education Association, with 3.2 million members who are educators all across the country. And we are working really, really hard. And we need to work hard at the federal, state, and local levels to try to create the kind of policy that leads to the schools that you deserve. We're much more powerful when we come together and do that collectively, rather than just doing it in an isolated way. And unfortunately, I've seen advocacy, people try to do it just by themselves, and speak up by themselves. And God bless them, they're doing the best they can. But if we come together, there's so much power in being united and doing things together and having each other's back and working together to push back against things like Regulation 43-170 and these book bans. We have strength in our numbers. We have strength together. I fundamentally believe there's more of us than there are of them. And I think there are common sense people who realize that teachers are amazing human beings trying to do really difficult work, but very, very important work. Some of the most important work that a human being can do on this planet. And we need to support them and love them. We need to pay them. We need to respect them. And we need to give them the resources they need to be successful, not make their lives worse with bad policies and fear mongering. So, okay, that's all. Love you. We will see you next week.